Okay, so I am currently logged into Vast Online. You're all fully aware that this is a cloud-based product, and I'm going to go through some of the advantages, obviously, of the fact that it is cloud-based and some of the differences between Vast today, Windows Vast that you're running at the locations, and Vast Online. To start off with, from the main home screen within Vast Online, as you can see, I'm just logged into a website. I've adjusted my screen. You can see my URL link or my standard browser buttons across the top of the screen here. I'm just going to hit F11 to maximize my screen. If I wanted to, you can see if I reduce my screen back down from a full screen, you can see that everything within Vast Online is reactive to the size of the screen that you're working with. What I mean by that is if I adjust that screen down, let me minimize that one. You can see that every time I make an adjustment to the screen size, Vast Online reacts accordingly. Whether I'm adjusting it up, down, side to side, it's all going to adjust. Same thing is true if I wanted to emulate running Vast Online from, say, a tablet or something like that. So if I go into this and say that I'm using an iPad Pro, here you can see what it would look like if I was utilizing Vast from a tablet. And again, I can, tip it from side to side, up and down, and adjust the screen size to get it to function as I need. So um, I'm going to go ahead and just change that back to just my standard laptop or desktop view. As I hold my control key down on the keyboard and scroll with my mouse, you can see that I have the ability to zoom in and zoom out. And this is all held in the login for this particular user. So right now I'm just zoomed into like 110% to make it a little bit easier on us. Um, and I'm going to hit F11 again to go to a full screen. Now, as we're looking at Vast Online across the top, there are several different icons that you'll see here. Everything from internet appointments, messages. Probably the most frequently used one is transfers. So now you have great visibility if there's transfers that are waiting to be addressed, transfer requests from other locations. If there was a transfer request, and I'll show that throughout this process, that would show, one, two, three, four, et cetera, however many transfers that need attention visible. End of day functionality. I can see here it kind of walks me through some of the different functions that you may run during your end of day. And then lastly, what we call our quick menu. The quick menu will jump me into quickly looking at my outstanding work in progress screen or my WIP screen that you're used to today in VAST, or the ability to do a quick phone quote. Okay. Now, these icons that you see across the top of the screen are static, meaning they are always visible across the top there, and I can't really make any changes to them at this point. In the future, we may be able to add some additional functionality to like the quick menu and things of that nature. But for now, when you log into Vast Online, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I'm now logged in as Martin Klosterman. And my default location when I log into Vast Online is store number 537. So now if you are a user that has access to Vast Online, meaning you've been given credentials, username and password, when you log into your instance of Vast, it will take you automatically to the store that is considered your default or your home shop. Okay. Obviously, if you are a regional or a district manager or something of that nature, you may need visibility to more than just one store, being 537. And with Vast Online, you no longer need to have different credentials. You no longer need to use different tools to log in to an alternate location. You can simply click on the little icon here in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that looks like a house or a business, and it'll give you a drop down list of all of the additional shops that you have access to, that you've been given permissions to view. So some people's logins will not show any shops here because they only have access to the shop that's considered their home shop. Other people, like myself, an administrator on the account, or maybe a regional or district manager, they're certainly going to want the ability to be able to click on this and change and switch to any shop that they want on the fly. And it's just as simple as that. When I click on shop 420, you'll now see that the screen refreshes. I'm now logged into Store 420, and I would have the ability to go to customer contact or write up a work order or a phone quote or close out a ticket or build an appointment, run reports, anything at all that I want to do at Store 420, I can do that quickly. I want to jump back to Store 537, I jump right back into it, and I'm back in operational at my home shop.
So Nick, this is one of the things that I think would be, just monumental for you guys, right? I mean, I've seen your process of your 100 plus icons and RDP sessions that you're sort of managing to jump from store to store. So someone like you would have 100 plus stores in that drop down. There would actually be a search bar that you could type in a store number or whatever it might be to pull up that location. And there's no need for you to constantly log in when you go from store to store or menu to menu, right? All of that is going to be built in on the back end to your user profile, right? So there's no more. I mean, I've seen you and I've seen Chris and other people in your organization. You're typing in your password every 5 seconds within Vast, right? You log in once and you'll have access to everything that your account has access to.
So you guys are both on mute. Just reminding you, if you've got any questions, feel free to either raise your hand or come off mute and let us know. So in addition to that, as I've got the ability to change stores very easily, if I was the person logged into this particular device, I can set the amount of time of inactivity before it would automatically log me off. So you've got some additional securities there as well. I mean, if somebody walks away, the screen is inactive for say 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, it'll automatically log them off. The next person coming up to that particular device would need to put in their username and password and log in. Now, I can click on the little singular icon here, the single person, and in doing so, I could log out if I wanted to. I'll go through a couple of these other functions here, but as you can see, I'm logged in with the permissions at this location of an admin or administrator on the account. If you have multiple people that are using the same device at the counter, then again, it's very simple for them just to click on the group icon, the group of people here in the upper right-hand corner, and select their name from the list of employees. I could go into John Fisher or whomever here and put in John's password and hit sign in. And obviously then it would say John Fisher at store 537. Now, in addition to this, like I said, easy to switch between stores, easy to switch between users. You can set the number of days before people need to change their passwords automatically. You can set the inactivity timer. You can identify how many stores or what stores people are able to view. In addition to that, though, are what we call roles and permissions. Now, I am currently logged in as an administrator on the account. What that means is I have, clearly more visibility. I have more responsibilities and functions that I have access to than a normal, say, technician, or maybe somebody whose only responsibility in the organization is inventory or payables or receivables or whatever it may be. So for each person and their role in the business, you would create a user account for them and identify what their role is in the organization and what permissions they have. As an example of that, I like to open up this other Vast Online window that we see here for an employee called Jackson Daniels. Now, Jackson is established in my system as a automotive technician, as we can see here. This is the role that he is currently assigned. And based on that role that he has, you can clearly see that I have not given him the same menu of choices as what I have if I switch back over to the Marty Klosterman login. Marty's got point of sale, reports, inventory, utilities, visibility to obviously the KPI reporting graphs that you see here, dashboards. And then down the left-hand toolbar, I've got access to point of sale, inventory, reports, accounts receivable, and Vast maintenance. Whereas Jackson Daniels, you can see again, he's limited to 5 different functions. In fact, the POS functions that you see here are even slightly different than the POS functions that I have. You know, customer contact, customer service history, view committed inventory, and tire lookup. In this case, I want this particular role to just be able to look at what we call a WIP screen, a work in progress screen. So I've been able to change the label of this to mimic what they're familiar with in VAST today. Customer service history, tire lookup, appointment scheduler, and outstanding quotes. So I want them to have visibility of these things, but nothing else. In addition to this, I've also established that Jackson Daniels only has view-only access, meaning if he goes into any of these open work orders, he has the ability to view the customer's symptoms, the comments, the parts and labor that are on the ticket, but I have given him read-only access to VAST Online, meaning he cannot change quantities, he can't change pricing, he can't delete line items, he can't add line items. If he was to try to go in and change any of those things, as he was trying to save the work order, it would tell him, hey, you're prohibited from making any changes to this work order, and his only option is to then cancel out of the ticket that he went into. Okay, so there's some very powerful functionality related to the roles and permissions within VAST Online that you don't have today in VAST. Okay, so just as a quick example, I'm going to drag that Jackson Daniels employee off to the side, and I'm back into my Marty Klosterman employee. So the other piece of this with VAST Online, everything is one screen, or everything is within one website. You don't need to go to a separate website for VAST maintenance. Everything is real time. So let's say that you're creating new employees, or you're creating new packages, or new inventory, or new payment types. Anything that you can think of that you might be doing from within VAST maintenance today that requires you to choose the option, send to shop, or create a text file and wait for the next day for that to transmit down to the stores for it to become available. Now it's all in real time, meaning if I go into maintenance, if I have accessibility to maintenance, here it is. This is everything that you would have normally found in VAST maintenance. It's now visible from my access to VAST Online. An example is, one huge example is with control file settings. With control file settings today with VAST, you cannot go into the multi-store and make a change and tell it to send it down to all the stores, because you'll have a disaster on your hands, right? Because it'll update things like labor rates, tax rates, catalog information, all kinds of things that get affected when you try to send down a text file from the multi-store. Now you have the ability in settings to decide if I want to change application settings for just this local single location, current location application settings, or multiple location application settings, or application settings which would be global, all of your locations. So let me go back to that a moment. If I go into where it says application settings, multiple locations, here we see a tree of all of your regions, districts, and individual stores. So if I went into general under application settings and went into point of sale and decided that I'm going to make some changes in here, well, that's great. I can apply the changes as needed and then simply decide what stores do I want those changes to take effect with. And when I save that, those changes are applied immediately. No longer waiting for anything else. I don't need to jump into multiple stores. I've made those changes here. So there should be a huge time savings in being able to manage anything that you would normally do at the multi-store and now would be in real time with VAST Online. Okay. So obviously lots of functionality here. If I scroll down and look at security, as I mentioned, we have the roles and permissions and the different menus that you can create that get associated to those roles and permissions. But we also have a security audit trail and audit details. So I can very easily keep track of different data sources and who the user was let me just pull up M. Klosterman here as a user. And I'll say starting date, let's just go back to September through today. Today's the 3rd. And let's see what we get here. Central bill and search. And I can see all of the changes that Marty has made to that particular customer. Well, Marty changed, was derived from customer contact. So I changed the customer number. And I can see over here, if I highlight one of these lines, I can see what the change was. Well, they changed this answer from false to true. And the original date that it was done was on 9/24, and I changed it on 10/1 at 10:47 a.m. So we're building more and more data sources that you have visibility of as a manager or as an administrator of who made what changes and when, and it's all based on their user login. So again, if you see people starting to abuse things that maybe they're causing some problems, well, maybe what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go in and I'm going to assign them a different role instead of a role of an administrator or of a service advisor or a manager or whatever. Maybe I'm just going to change them to a technician. You know, several different things that I can do in here. If I look at this technician test that I've built, I can look at what things they have and if they've got the ability to create, read, update, or delete. Maybe I'm just going to give them read access and remove all of the create, update, and delete options. So it's very, very configurable. Okay. Any questions on what I've shown so far as some of the navigation up and down the left-hand side and across the top toolbar, or related to the roles and permissions or multi-store? Okay. I'll go ahead and continue. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that you're always running the latest version of Vast Online. So I know that AAA has always struggled a bit with keeping up to the latest release of Vast Maintenance and Vast Point of Sale. Now there'd be none of that to work with. Everything that has gone through QA that is in the general release for Vast Online, you're always going to be running the latest version. And you also have visibility of preview features here now under your user login. If I click on preview features, I can see at either an employee level or an organizational level some of the changes that have been added or some of the features that have been added to Vast Online with the most recent updates. You can decide if you want to turn these things on or off from here, or obviously, you know, it will tell you where you could go make those changes, if they were maintenance, if they were control file settings and things of that nature. Yeah, go ahead, Francis.
Hey, so just a quick question. These features, as I guess would be based on what we identify as needed in the contract, and what would be, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but if we, let's say we're up and running in Vast Online for a couple months, and we decided that, oh, there's a feature available in Vast Online that we would like to add. How quick of a turnaround is that to add it in?
Yeah, it's probably not as black and white as that, and I think Nick can attest to it, right? I mean, it all depends on what type of feature we're adding, right? I mean, not all features are going to be equal, right? So maybe it's I'm using very broad examples here, so I apologize, but like this past year, right, you guys decided to build an integration into Connect Suite, right? That's not a 2-week turnaround type of project, right? So what we do ahead of time, though, is we will give you guys the scope of any project that we're working on. We'll give you a timeline for when that will be delivered. The way that our Vast Online development teams work is they work in sprints. So we have a bunch of different, right now I think we're sitting at 65 developers specifically for this product. So if you guys had a custom enhancement that you wanted, we would fit it into one of those sprints. We would tell you when that sprint is starting and ending, and then based off of that, we'd have a delivery date. Now, one of the caveats I'd like to add to what Marty said is our customers of your size, the way that we're typically going to operate. The nice thing is, and Nick will attest to this, right? Nick, when you guys go to load in one of our recent updates, right? It's a bit of a process for you guys, right? There's man hours behind it. You need to schedule it in advance, all those things. The nice thing is what Marty said, right? That we actually handle the rollout of all of our new releases. So that way we're able to keep all of our customers current. However, that rollout is segmented, right? We don't roll it out to the entire customer base one night and then everyone has it. We do it in waves, right? So what our larger customers are doing, and you guys would fit under that umbrella, obviously, is that you guys will have a sandbox environment. So on that sandbox environment, we would tend to have that in the first rollout, so that, immediately you guys have access to the new release. You can do your internal testing and QAT. And then once we get the okay from you, we would roll it out into your environment.
Okay. And, with these features that are shown on the right-hand side, I think from what I recall, for VAST currently, it's a flat rate that we pay. Now, let me use this as an example. So
yeah,
in the presentation last week, there was a mention of like a loyalty program. Let's say that we launch VAST Online, but we don't include that in the beginning. But it seems like a standard VAST feature.
Yeah.
Is that like a plug and play kind of item since it's like a core feature, or is it still require a little bit of dev work?
So, specifically to the CRM, that is, we're building out that product with partners, right? So, you'd have the integration out of the box, right? And then if you choose to use the solution, there could be SaaS fees related to it. But as a policy, none of these development items are ever anything that you're charged for, right? So as we release new items as part of your maintenance with us, you're getting access to all these items, right? And as it stands today, none of the work that we've done is exclusive to any account, right? So we're doing development work with a lot of the, largest tire dealers in the country, and currently doing business with 7 of the top 20, right? Any work that they're paying for is going into our general release and is available to our customers at no charge.
Got it. So like pretty much the whole catalog of features are typically available, and
Yes.
we just have the ability to say turn this on or bolt
Yes,
this on or take it off, basically.
Everything's a control setting, right?
Yep.
So you'll have the ability to toggle these things on and off. Now there's products like you're using today, like our parts and labor catalog, right? That has a separate line item of maintenance associated to it that you guys are paying, right? That we would add as an add-on service, right? But things like, hey, one of the things we've recently built out is a wheel catalog in our systems, right? So we have customers that stock wheels, they want to have a catalog for it and a way to inventory them. You would have that out of the box, right? Now I know that might not be the fit for you guys, but I'm using it as an example.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Great.
Thank you.
So as I continue through here, as you can see, some of the dashboard views that you've got, you can see today that I've created 7 quotes in this particular instance, or store number 537. I've converted 7 quotes to work orders. I've completed or invoiced out 5 work orders so far today. And on my appointment calendar, I have 8 appointments that are booked for today. So I can easily see this kind of information. Weekly total sales target, KPI information, if you will. I can see that I've sold 16,000 in labor, 16,000 in tires, and about 16,000 in parts. If I click on this pie chart, I can see some of my specific KPIs. It says here that I've met, or my sales target for tire sales at this location is 8750. Well, I'm already at 16,000 in tire sales for the week. So I've exceeded all of my targets or my goals for the week. But sometimes you'll come in here, obviously, and see, hey, maybe I'm only at 1,500 in alignment sales for the week, and my target's 2,000. I'm going to see that, hey, I've got some work that I need to do. I need to remember to be pushing, road hazard or alignments or whatever it may be. Okay. So you can establish some of your goals or your targets per location at the shops now as well. Okay. As I mentioned, when we looked at Jackson Daniels login and how his was, completely different from Marty Klosterman, the other thing that I wanted to point out is that you do, as an administrator on the account, have the ability to change the labeling. I mean, if you don't want it to say POS and you actually want it drawn out to point of sale, you could change that in the menus. If you didn't want it to say customer contact and you wanted it to say customer lookup or customer file or something like that, you can change the names of these individual functions to whatever meets your needs, or to maybe kind of mirror what you're familiar with calling things today in VAST. Especially if you're going to convert from a VAST product where you're used to seeing customer contact or outstanding work orders. Well, if you want to keep the same terminology, outstanding work orders is essentially the same as outstanding work orders here. So we've tried to mirror things as best as possible, but if for some reason AAA is used to identifying or using different acronyms for things to streamline it or keep it consistent, you now have the ability to do any of those types of things. Okay. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to actually go through a demonstration of customer coming in. We'll say that they're coming in for tires. They're also complaining of maybe some brake noise or something like that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to walk through the process of creating a work order for a customer for tires, maybe do a brake inspection or something like that. I'll go through building a package of a brake job. I'll throw on an oil change. I'll also throw on some a la carte parts and labor using our catalog. In the process, I will show you how we also use our appointment scheduler, so you get an idea of what that looks like as well. Okay. Again, feel free to stop me with any questions. So for starters, I'm just going to click on customer contact from the home screen, and I can search for my customers by any of the ways across the top of the screen, whether it's name, partial name, zip code, state, phone, license, fleet number, or bill to, or what we consider the parent account on a fleet. Okay. In this case, I'm going to just type in the first couple letters of my last name. I find Marty Klosterman listed here. When I select Marty, let me back up a screen here. When I select Marty from here, or I could identify that this was going to be an over-the-counter sale. Okay. Meaning parts only, no install, no labor, etc. Or maybe you're doing work, but you don't want to affiliate this work with a particular vehicle. Okay, so then you could choose over the counter. In this case, I'm going to hit select, and it shows me that Marty has several active work orders already in the system, just in case I was accidentally about to duplicate some work. Okay, so that's a control setting that you can turn on or off, whether or not you want to check the database for active work orders before starting a new work order. I'll just hit OK to that. I see my laundry list of vehicles that are listed here. I can also display disabled vehicles if I wanted to. I can see I've got several here that I've marked as disabled. One thing that VAST Online is offering you now also is the ability to merge duplicate vehicles, which you do not currently have that ability to do so in VAST. So, if these two Corvettes or these two Lexus IS250s were actually the same vehicle, I could go into maintenance and I could merge those two vehicles into one record and save all of the history in that one record. Okay, so that's an added feature that you don't have today. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that Lexus again. It takes me to the customer vehicle screen, which is very similar to what you have today. I don't really have much to point out here that would be anything different other than maybe the multiple email addresses or the designation of whether they want email statements or printed statements if it's an AR customer. You can see that Marty is a fleet account. There is bill to information separate from the ship to, meaning I'm just a driver of this vehicle, but the owner or the parent account is actually called central billing test account. Okay, so we've got visibility of that type of information here. Obviously, I've got access to Carfax like you have today if you're using that. I have the ability to easily look at declined history from previous visits. I can easily see here because the color profile for customer and vehicle is the bright green, letting me know that there's some notes in there that I might want to take advantage of. Hey, this guy obviously likes coffee, and there's a note on there that also says he likes it with milk and cookies, whatever, and a general note. Parts preference, he prefers OEM, prefers them gift wrapped, and so on and so forth. So that's common to what you have today in VAST. I do like to go into the comments and forums. Again, this is common to what you have in VAST as far as the work order comments or symptoms. You can create as many symptom classes and available comments as you'd like. If I wanted to select the check brake noise, I just put a check mark on it and it throws it onto both the technician's worksheet, stored in history, and it's also visible within CarSide. So the technician knows what the customer's complaint was. If I wanted to add an additional complaint here on the fly, I can a la carte, type in whatever notes I want. I'll just say pulls to the left when braking. And I'll hit add, and it's throwing that on as an additional note for the technician, and I can save that. Okay. Next, I'm going to hit continue. It's going to take me into the body of the work order, which at that point, I'm going to go and I'm going to first look up tires. Like I said, the customer came in for tires. When I click on the tire icon, very similar to what you have today in VAST as far as your tire grid. I do have the fitment capability here. I can say, yes, it's a 2009 Lexus IS 250. I can choose the all-wheel drive trim level, which tells me it's a 225/45/17. And it's automatically displaying for me now all of the ones that I have already on hand or in stock. Or as you can see here where I've got negative on hand or availability, the reason that it's still displayed here is because that's a product that has recommended quantity greater than 0. So if I wanted to see all products, regardless of how many I have on hand, I could change my configuration settings to automatically display that. I prefer to click on it if I need to see more product personally. Other things that we have here that we didn't have in VAST is you can see here on this first product, this Toyo, that there's a $sign on NPP and TSN. And if I click on that $sign, it's going to display for me the rebate information that's associated with that particular line of Toyo tires. I could automatically email this to the customer, or I could print it, hand it to them locally, whatever I want to do. So with this NPP and TSN file attachment, that's really all it is you have the ability to go into any products now and attach one or multiple files to that type of product, where you have the ability to pull it up, print it, or email it. Okay. Similar functionality in VAST as far as if I've got a product highlighted, I could hit stock and I could easily see what I've got available at other locations. For transfers, you can see here that it's showing me my first 5 other locations that I have visibility to right here. I could highlight any of the quantities and I could do a transfer request right from here on the fly. Okay, so if at store 545 I wanted to request 4 of these, I can do that and put a note in here. And save that. And that transfer request, number 61, has been generated. And in a moment, I will switch over to store 545 and we'll see at the top of their screen that there's a transfer request notification. We also have access to VTire, just like you have today. We have the ability to see out the door pricing. So I know that for 4 of these tires, just the rubber is $600, but the rubber along with all of these out the door tag-alongs is $790.57. I do have the ability to click these on or off depending on what the customer is approving or wants, and the ability to add additional functions on the fly. If the customer said they needed nitrogen fill, well, I can easily add that to the ticket. Not a problem. Okay. Tire comparison, just like you have with VAST today, I can select up to 3 different products to do a tire comparison and print that out. Okay. In this case, I'm just going to go with these Toyos that we have available on hand, or I'm actually negative, but I'll do that transfer, not a problem. I'm going to select 4 of them, and I'm going to hit save, and it's going to transfer all of those products to my work order, just like VAST does. Now, one other thing that's different than VAST is today in VAST, you have the ability for only 1 road hazard plan. In VAST Online, you can create numerous road hazard plans with different formulas associated with each one of them. So you might have a basic plan, you might have a premium plan, you may have, several in between. So you always have the ability to either select a plan that the customer wants to purchase, or if the customer wants to decline it, we'll identify that as such. In this case, I'm going to choose the basic plan and hit save, and it throws that on there. That one is just based on 10% of the selling price of the tire. So $149.95 per tire. I'm charging basically $15 for the road hazard plan times 4 for 60 as the extension. Not a ton different there, right? As far as VAST and VAST Online. Now, in addition to the tires, I'm also going to do a brake package quickly. This is very similar to what you've got in VAST today. I'll choose the full service brake package, and it's going to walk me through selecting the appropriate parts out of my catalog for this brake job. So the first group of parts that come up are my bang part for disc brake pad sets. And according to this, I have some of them on hand. So I could select these, or clearly I could go out to my open web sources from the item broker and buy them from any of those sources. Okay. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select these front disc brake pads, and then I'm going to go to item 2 of 3, which is the calipers. Again, I'd want to buy them or use them out of inventory if I could. If not, I can go to my suppliers. I'll just hit finish. I see my basket now where I have the ability that if I wanted to order these electronically, I could, or I could just post it from the basket to the work order to quote the customer, get their approval. If they approve it, then I'll go back and order them electronically in a moment. So now I've got an estimate here for basically $1,000 plus tax, shop supplies, etc. If I want, I could hit save work order. It's going to save everything that's on here. If I'm connected to Carside, it's automatically going to generate a new Carside digital vehicle inspection for this particular customer and vehicle. If I hit finish, I get several choices. I can either just save the work order, I could convert it to an invoice, or I could create an appointment. I'll go ahead and click on create an appointment so I can give you an example of what the appointment screen looks like in comparison to VAST today. What I'm doing here is when I click on create an appointment, it opens up the edit appointment screen. It shows me the customer and the vehicle information. It's showing me here the current status of the work order. I can put in a work description here. I could assign a technician. And here is where I can select different work types, which will basically determine how many hours the appointment should be stretched through. So right now I've defaulted, I've said, hey, brake jobs typically take about an hour. If I click on tires also, it adds another half hour to that planned hours field, and so on and so forth. So you can create as many work types as you'd like in here and determine how many minutes each of those work types should add to the planned hours. So doing this at an hour and a half, my next function would then be to select the day and the bay that this work should be performed in. So when I click on that, it's now showing me my calendar for today. I can see that I've got different labels, and I can create as many labels across the top here. I could actually use employee names if I wanted to. I see several different appointments that are already booked here for today. And according to my heat map on the right-hand side of the screen on the calendar, I can see what days are busier and which days are lighter. So I could click on any one of these days on the calendar on the right-hand side and apply the appointment to the appropriate bay and day. So right now, if I said, hey, Marty, you know what? We're pretty tied up today. I could get you in tomorrow. If I click on the 4th, I can see what appointments are currently in on the 4th. And I just have 2 things for alignments. So I could clearly throw this guy into some technical work for brakes and tires or whatever I wanted to on that day or any other day on my calendar. If I went back to today, I can see here, well, you know what? My tire bay is kind of filled up until about noon, but I'm going to get you in anyway. So we're going to get in for tires. I'm going to say, let's put you in at 12 o'clock. And I'm just going to hit save. Now, what it did is it just applied Marty to the appointment calendar in the tire slot at noon, and it is overlapping some additional work that I already had in noon. With regard to the calendar screen that you're looking at here, you have the ability to configure the calendar screen not only to decide what bay labels you want, but you have the ability to determine each bay and what the standard allocated amount of time is. So here I've got 60-minute default appointments. Oil changes are broken down into 15-minute intervals. Diagnostics are broken down into 30-minute intervals. So you decide the amount of time that you're going to allow for appointment intervals, and you also decide how many jobs you will allow to overlap themselves within a specific bay. So you can see here that I clearly have 2 in there. If I click and drag on Harry Kim, it also lets me put a 3rd one in there. If I try to do a 4th one, but bringing Ryan Fisher into there, it tells me, hey, you've met the maximum number of appointments reached in that time slot. Well, fine, let me move Ryan into the 10 o'clock slot then. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. Drag and drop capabilities, very simple to use. If I decided that I wanted to move Marty from Thursday, October 3rd, to any other day on my calendar, I can just simply drag and drop his appointment into the unallocated list, click on a different day of the week, and just simply drag and drop that appointment back in as needed. In addition to the heat map color coding that you see on the calendar, we also have color coding with each one of our appointments. We see greens, blues, yellows, etc. And each one of those can be configured by you. So greens represent work orders. Blues represent scheduled as far as the statuses. Yellow is we've got a promise date in here, so on and so forth. So you can configure those so you very easily understand when you're looking at anything on the calendar what the colors represent here and what kind of a day I've got. Okay. Any questions for me at this point? Take a quick breather here. Okay. I'll go ahead and continue. So with that appointment, if I click on Marty Klosterman, it opens up his appointment information. And if I want to go right back into the work order, I could do it from here. I can just click on work order, it opens it right back up. If I didn't want to do it from there, obviously I could come back to my work in progress or my home screen, and I could go to my outstanding work orders and see a list of all of the open work orders for today, yesterday, last 7, last 30 days, or all open work orders, or quotes, or deposits, appointments, national accounts, or voided tickets, etc. I've got the ability to search off of any of this information across the top of the screen here as I'm looking for open work orders or estimates, etc. Okay. If I highlight this one for Marty Klosterman here, if I wanted to, I could just click on the pencil and it's going to open up that work order. And here I am back to my brake job and my tires. I'm going to go ahead and throw on a couple of other things here. Let's go back into packages. I'm going to throw on a quick oil change. I'll throw on my platinum oil change. And just like VAST, it's going to walk me through the viscosity. It's going to walk me through the capacity. It's going to walk me through selecting the appropriate oil filter for this vehicle year, make, and model. So this one's calling for 6.8 quarts of oil for the all-wheel drive vehicle model, including the filter change. I'll select that. This is just a warning that the capacity is greater than the amount of oil on the standard package. We know that because the standard package was 5 quarts of oil. So I will be adding an additional 1.8 quarts of oil to the package. You can see that. It's automatically opening up the catalog and finding the correct filter for that vehicle, which I'll select and hit finish and post. For a la carte work, parts and labor using our catalog, that's going to be very similar to what you have today with VAST. If I click on products at the bottom of my screen, I can go to catalog and I can look up parts, or I prefer to look up labor first and then find the affiliated parts that go with the labor operation in question. So in this case, I'm just going to type in water. I'm looking for a water pump. There it is. Book calls for a water pump on this car at 3.6 hours. I have modified my motor labor times by 10%. I've increased them. So where it says 3.6 hours, I'm actually going to modify the time to 4.1 as far as what I'm going to charge the customer. In addition to that, I can click on show replacement parts in the bottom, and it shows me a list of all parts that are affiliated with replacing a water pump. And I could select as many of these as I want to attempt to look up. In this case, if I just want the water pump, I'll select it and go to look up parts. I don't stock any water pumps in my local inventory, nor would I probably ever do that. So clearly, I'm going to go to AutoZone, O'Reilly, Napa, or one of my local sources to find that water pump, check my cost and availability. The X tells me that Napa does not have any in stock, so maybe I'll go to AutoZone or one of my other sources. This should really be no different than what you're familiar with today. So I'm going to choose this AutoZone Duralast water pump. I'll select it and I'll hit finish. Again, I could order it right now if I wanted to, but I'm just getting the customer's approval. So I'm just going to build the quote. And at this point, I'm up to $1,745. What I've shown you so far with tires, brakes, oil change, and water pump, not that much different from what you have today in VAST, but I want to show you something now that I think is really beneficial for AAA based on, your enterprise and the number of locations that you have. And that is, let's say that Marty only wants to do the tires today, and he wants to hold off on the brakes, the water pump, and the oil change. Well, in VAST today, you would probably then go in and select a bunch of the items and choose decline, right? You're going to decline multiple items. Well, with VAST Online, we have this function called quote. So if I want to select any of these items that are on my work order and convert them from this work order into a new quote, I can do that. But the upside is not just the fact that it saved it as a new quote number that I could then merge into another existing work order for Marty, but that quote is available and visible at any of your other locations. So if Marty decides to travel to another alternate location and get that work done at a later time, that alternate location would have the ability to pull up that quote and convert it to a work order at their location, and it would be converted based on their labor rate, based on their tax rate, etc. Yeah, go ahead, Francis.
So just make sure I'm following you. So let's say Marty gets a quote in Mount Laurel, but lives closer to Marlton, and he wants to get, Marty wants to get it done in Marlton. That quote would already be pre-built, and any sort of conversion from labor, tax, or whatever would just be, that's all you would need to do. You would need to build an entirely new quote.
I'll do it as part of this process. So I'm going to leave just the tires on there. Okay. So let's go to this brake package. When I select the package line, it automatically checked all of the items associated to that package. I'm going to select the oil change and the extra 1.8 quarts of oil, the water pump, and the labor. And I'm going to click on quote here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And it says prices on this quote will expire in 30 days. That's fine. It just stripped all of those items off of the work order number 3083, and it's creating a brand new quote number 485 with just the oil change, brake job, and water pump on it. Now let's say I'm just going to hit finish. I just want to save that. I don't know when he's going to get it done. If I wanted to, I could create an appointment, or I could convert this to a work order as well. I just want to save the quote. That quote was built at store 537 and saved. Now, here's Marty's original ticket, this number 3083 here. There's the tires, right? If I wanted to invoice this out, let's go ahead and finish this. Let's just go ahead and click in invoice, and it's going to walk me through all of the standard vehicle or work order requirements that you've established today in VAST. So I need to put in DOT numbers for the tires. I'll go ahead and do that for all 4 of them and save. I need to assign technician. I need to, determine which terminal I'm sending this credit card charge to and choose the payment type. Now, while I'm at the payment type screen here, I want to point out that payment types are now maintained at the customer type level. Meaning that if you've created an employee customer type, you could say that employees, their default payment method is cash, and they're only allowed to pay by cash, check, or credit card. Can't do accounts receivable, can't do, maybe American Express or something like that, or whatever. So you can really start to manage customer types by how they're going to be allowed to pay. In this case, I'll say Marty's going to pay by cash for the $800 worth of tires, and I'm going to save that. And this ticket is now completed. It's in history. Okay, but that history is visible at any other location. And clearly, based on my permissions, at least into VAST Online, I'd have the ability to go into customers and look at their history, or pull up anything that I want, really, from any location. Now, what I'd like to do quickly is I'd like to switch locations to show you that transfer request that I pulled up. Remember, we requested tires from store 545. So if I go to store 545, here I am in 2 seconds. Now I'm in store 545, and we see on this little wheelbarrow, or this little cart here, that there are 3 transfers that are awaiting action. If I click on that, I can see the transfer numbers, and I can see the location and the date of when that transfer was created. Well, store 537 created it. It's transfer number 61. Date, who did it, meaning who was the logged in user, and the status. Well, it's pending. So in this case, if I want to go ahead and complete that, I'll go ahead and select this transfer. And I can receive this product. Sorry. Second here. So I can go in and I can finalize this transfer out by location. Okay. Once I've completed the transfer here, as I go back to store 537 where it was started from, I can see that they had transferred it out, and I have the ability to then receive it in at my location along with a printed document. Additionally, while I'm at store 545, if this is the location where Marty was going to get the oil change, the brakes, and the water pump done, well, let's go to outstanding quotes. I could search for the customer by quote number. I could search for them by name, address, any of this information here to find an existing quote. Now, if I come in here, here's quote number 485 that I had done for Marty Klosterman for $959.40. At this point, I can see that that was originally quoted for him at store 537, even though I'm currently at 545. If I want, I can highlight that, and I have the ability to either scroll this down a little bit. Lost some of my buttons. So I have the ability down here to either create a work order out of that or copy the quote. So let me go ahead and just highlight it and click on create work order. I'm not sure what happened there. Copy that. Here's the quote from store 537. I'm at 545. It's got everything on there. It's using the taxes and the labor rates based on the current location. And at this point, I have the ability to hit finish. And I want to either save that as a quote here or create a work order. Now I've just converted that quote to a work order. And I could complete that at this location. Okay. Now, other capabilities, I'm going to switch back over to store 537 a moment. Other capabilities that you have here. Let me go into outstanding work orders, and I know I've got some other tickets open for that same Lexus. So here I've got that Lexus with $21 on it. If I go into that ticket, well, I can click on quote, and I can go to merge quote, and here are a bunch of quotes that have been created on that Lexus where they have not yet been completed. I see that some of them are work orders, some of them are QTs for quotes. And if I click on the plus sign, I can see the parts and labor that were affiliated with that quote. And if I decided I wanted to add that quote onto the current work order, I just simply choose selected. I want to add more stuff to it. Oh, I want this oil change. Well, I could add that to it, and so on and so forth. So I can easily pick and choose what items I want to add from a saved quote, regardless of where the quote was made, and hit merge. And it just took all of those things and dumped them right onto this open ticket that I'm working on today. So that's something that's pretty substantial, I believe, at least in the AAA world, where you've got so many locations and people, might be taking the time to build these quotes and save them for the customer. Like I said, it doesn't matter which AAA location they go into. The customer has the ability to have that same quote brought up and started and completed at an alternate location. Make sense?
Yeah, one of the great things.
Yes, sir.
One of the great things, Nick, right, is that this is a central database system, right? So with VAST, everything's decentralized. Anytime you're trying to call on global info, you're querying the multi-store, right? And you're relying on that data replication to get you the info. This is all on one database that we have segmented to block out your locations, but they can easily and quickly access other stores' info and other history and things of that nature.
One thing that I also wanted to point out here, I forgot while I was in the appointment scheduler. Obviously, we see our appointments here at store 537, but another nice feature is your visibility, again, based on permissions, to look at the appointment calendar immediately without even having to switch to a different shop. If I want to see what does the calendar look at store 545, well, I just clicked on their appointment calendar and they're wide open. So if you ever have a customer that says, well, you know what, I'd really like to get that done today or tomorrow. You guys can't fit me in. What's the store look like down the road? Could they get me in? Well, now you've got that visibility in a matter of seconds to see what other locations bay configuration is. You can see that, stores 128 through 132 here really haven't even got any bay labels set up. But when I go to 420, I can see their appointment calendar is wide open. I could build appointments here. I could, send the customer that direction, whatever I need to do. Okay. So that's something that I think would also be pretty beneficial. One other piece that I wanted to point out as I go through this demonstration are what we call liability prompts. Again, something that I think may be beneficial for AAA is as you're going through and performing the work order. If I add, right now we see this enter specs button is just black and white, just gray. But if I add a product to this ticket called UL, I've got an Uber Lyft inspection, vehicle inspection that I've built. When I select that, you'll see that the enter specs button lit up in bright green. The reason for that is there are liability prompts that I have affiliated with that part number called UL inspection. What that means is that I could either click on this manually since it lit up in green and I could I could populate or complete the liability responses. Or if I try to finish this work order and invoice it out, it's going to force me to go through and complete those liability prompts. So what that looks like is when I click finish and click on invoice, it's going to walk me through again. I've got to put in all of my requirements, starting with DOT numbers and anything else that's been set up on the system. But this now comes up and it says, hey, wait a minute, the following user requirements are required. Liability specs must be completed. And I have two different groups of liability specs in this particular case for that Uber Lyft inspection. The first one being a torque check. Who went around and retorqued all the lug nuts as you replaced these tires or as you did whatever service it may be? Well, what I have here under torque check, I just created an example just to show you some of the things that you could do. Within there, you could create your individual notes where I could type in some notes and it's going to store them, right? It identifies the fact that I took some special notes. I could put in somebody's signature line maybe or their printed name. I can gather the date if I wanted to, 10/3/2024. And then I've got selection boxes. Would I rather have a dozen donuts, pizza, or go hungry? I'll choose pizza today. And then, so that has been completed. Now I need to go to the clean and inspect wheel hub assembly, and I've built another completely different group of requirements or specifications that need to be applied to this. So I'll just say, yes, it was completed, and it was completed by Marty on 10/20, whatever. And once I've got that information in there, I can save it. And it will then let me move on, select my payment terminal, and select my method of payment, and finish that ticket. That kind of wraps up where I went through as far as the demonstration at the meeting last week. If there's anything else that you'd like me to dive into or questions that you've got, I'd be more than happy to do that at this time.
No, I don't. And that was you're really good at this, Marty. Very, very
Thank you,
good
Nick.
at this.
Thank you. It's I mean, it's definitely come a long way from where Vast Online was, say, 3 years ago, right? I mean, the speed, the functionality, the amount of release notes. I mean, just as an example, here I keep track of every time we have any kind of a release, and I'll go through the release notes and kind of, teach myself some of the new features and functionality. I mean, this is just a list of some of the different updates that have been done over the last couple of years. A lot of other videos and things like that to go along with them, but it's definitely come a long way in 3 years. I can say that for sure.
Yeah, I mean the reality, Nick, is that what we've done is we've built a system that's really for folks like you guys. I mean these massive enterprises that we give you guys ultimate control in the background to really own the user experience, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love everything about this online. I can't wait to see you guys use another aspect of your company with your logistics software. Once you get to that VAST Online part of it, or open, whatever, for the warehouse.
Yeah,
that's going to be a total game changer. That's the one part of it missing.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, I think in the short term for you guys, the plan is that we're going to connect the systems via an API so that we can handle transfers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But ultimately, our plan is that we're going to build all the functionality into Vast Online, right? So that you just have one system, right? Everyone lives within one environment. And one of the things I think that might be interesting, I was thinking about this when we were on the call here, is looking at your usage of VEW today and seeing what the gaps are, because you guys aren't selling out of VEW, you're just doing transfers, right?
Yeah, so I always ask that. I was like, why can't they just be single stores?
Yeah.
Like, we'll just set them up as, whatever the hell the number is, single store, set it up to transfer to whatever stores we wanted to transfer to.
Yeah.
I mean, we realize, and then we might have to do something special with their end of day settings or whatnot. And
Right.
but essentially, that's all it is. I mean, it's not like we're a huge big time logistics company.
Right. Right. You
we're
guys
just
aren't,
using
you're not
logistics
worried about
software.
routing and, selling these tires online and all this type of stuff, right? I mean, you're just,
I mean, we do that. Yeah, we do that. So I don't know. Maybe we are.
No, but
we
you're
did start
not doing-
online
you're
stuff,
not-
tire sales.
yeah, but you're not selling externally, right? You're just selling it to your customers.
Your own AAA stores.
Well, I guess no, it would be to also non-AAA members too.
But what I'm saying is you're not selling to other businesses, right? You're selling to consumers.
So I think there is us with a chance to sell to other businesses where Bob falls in line. You could check with him where Bob runs all those AARs, those approved auto repairs. Which
Yeah,
are
that's
500 something Napas. I asked him, I was like, why don't we as a whole AAA buy all those tires and sell them to AAR because we'll get such a lower price and we already have these warehouses logistically.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's a good thought. So
Yeah.
I don't want to pigeonhole us into something that's a no, because that's something I've been trying to work with Bob, because that's, like I said, that's almost 600 stores
Huge
that will be
opportunity.
buying tires
Yeah.
from us.
Yeah, then what we could do is we'd throw you guys on our open web. So we have a B2B portal, right? That exposes your inventory. They could see their accounts receivable balance with you guys. They could order directly through you guys. We could open up a lot of different doors with a process like that.
I mean, at the end of the day, we are a business, so it's any way to generate more income.
Amen.
And
Well,
then we
great.
have
Well,
the
I hope
mobile,
this,
we have the mobile tire vans. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things I was going to say is I would think that Vast Online is a perfect fit for mobile.
It's a perfect fit for everything.
Yeah.
And like I said, even right now, just to get us to where we're working currently, well, there's no reason why, to me, we couldn't set up all 7 VEW locations as just a single store. I don't know if maybe we can negotiate something with like a cheaper contract, because I feel like maybe it's cheaper for VEW instance than it is for an actual live store instance. But
well, it's cheaper in the sense of like you're not using all the things that your single stores would have. So you're not using
Right.
parts and labor catalogs and digital inspection. So yeah, I mean, there's you can
Carfax, yeah.
right, you could do that stuff, right? So yeah, we'd be able to come in at a lower price point than your standard stores would. So
Hey, listen, that's totally an option to get this ball rolling.
I mean, I think
see
the
it.
biggest thing, and I think we're all on the same page, is we want to reduce the development scope for the project as much as possible, right? We don't want you guys stuck in here spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to rewrite all this functionality. Let's see what we have today, what will fit your processes, and then let's integrate into the systems that you need, and then we'll add the core features that you guys need.
I'm absolutely on board with that, undoubtedly.
Yeah. Have you accessed Vast Online yet since we've spun it up for you?
No, I haven't been told on how to do that.
Okay, I thought Andrew, I thought he sent an email the other day, but if he didn't,
He asked us for who needs credentials, and I gave him a list of that, and then I haven't heard anything. But it's only been since Thursday. So I spoke to him Thursday at the meeting, and he said he's working on it. So
yeah, he sent out an email on Monday with everything. So you're good to go.
oh my God, really?
I'm staring at it right now. I got your login, I got your password, and I have the URL for your address. Let me send it to you.
Well, let me check my junk. Hold on.
Yeah, user accounts literally, Nick, take 2 minutes to set up, as long as you got a name and an email address and you know what role you want to assign to that person, as far as their visibility or permissions. It's literally, like I said, minutes if you need to set up a new user account.
That's crazy. I'm looking for it. I don't see it.
I just forwarded it to you, so you should have it
Oh,
now.
okay.
But
Like, if
yeah,
I
he
look
sent
at-
it on, he sent it on Monday, so it's got the URL and it's got all of your. He gave you a whole laundry list of logins for you, Tim, Francis, Chip, Josh, Bob, Lauren, Denise, everybody. So everyone has a login.
Can you forward that to me too? I think
Yes.
I missed that.
Yes, sir.
Here's an example of my user account, Nick. If you're seeing the screen here, you can see that my username is M. Klosterman. It's got my
Right.
employee name and employee ID, etc. And here's where we've identified what stores I have visibility to and what my role is at that particular store and what my default home shop is. So let's say that I suddenly am now in control of 3 or 4 other locations. I can just click on add, hit the drop down, and find all of my hundreds of locations here and add one. I just added 229 to the list. And then I could say, well, maybe at that location, I only help out as a technician. So I'm going to change my role from a system administrator to a tech at this location.
Can we?
And-
Sorry, go ahead, Marty.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to point out that I could choose any of that stuff and narrow down what my roles are at different locations and what my capabilities are.
And from like a housekeeping perspective, we could also facilitate this through Active Directory, right?
Yes, so we have a we have an API to update employees. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I guess like when you have there's a lot of shops, so naturally
Right.
a lot of people, and you don't want to, it's easier to move someone from a group.
Yeah.
There's nested groups in that group, instead of just kind of doing it from this. I would say that it'd be easier to manage on a group basis versus on a user basis.
Yeah, so I would think we'd be able to facilitate it. I'm going to want to get some of the technical folks involved. But what we're doing with our other large enterprise accounts is that, like, I know you guys use like Workday and other tools, but we have an employee API that as you update your employees, it can update it in our system. And you could set a generic role that's automatically assigned to everybody, and then update. Just come in and update the roles as you have to.
Okay, so you're saying that would come from Workday instead?
I'm guessing. I don't
Perhaps.
know where you guys store that data, but that would be my guess.
And
Okay.
this is where I can
Yeah.
create access or create an API token, for different tables or different views within the database, different, data points. So if I wanted to provide somebody with API access to the employee service section, I can choose to give it a name. How many days does this token remain available for? And when I create that, here's the token that was created. I don't know all of the process in the background that happens when you're pushing and pulling information, but like I said, I just kind of wanted to point out where we can go to gather that information. And now I see that I've got an active API token setting out here for employee access.
And Francis, we do have Swagger documentation for all of our APIs that we can make available for your development team.
Cool. Awesome.
Did you guys get
think,
the email that I sent out to you guys?
Yeah, I'm gonna play around in there, and I'll probably have some questions, and I'll definitely shoot them over probably early.
Yeah,
next
so
week.
Andrew's on standby, to do training with you guys and walk through how-tos and all that stuff. So, when we're ready, let's start getting sessions set up and we'll walk through capabilities and how-tos and all of that good stuff.